The lock clicked behind me before I even realized what was happening. And when I turned back, my wife was already standing on the other side of the door, looking at me like I was a stranger. My suitcase was sitting on the porch, not packed by me, packed for me. I asked her what this was, what I had done, but she didn't answer. She just slid a folder through the gap and said, calm as ever, "You don't live here anymore." I opened it with shaking hands. Bank accounts drained, my name gone from the house, signatures I didn't remember giving. 47 years of marriage, reduced to a few sheets of paper and 10 minutes to disappear. I stood there longer than I should have. Neighbors' curtains twitched across the street in Des Moines. People I'd waved to for decades pretending not to see. My wife, Carol, didn't raise her voice, didn't cry, didn't even look angry. That was the worst part. There was no emotion left in her at all, like I'd already been erased. "Carol," I said, keeping my voice steady, "you don't just end a life like this." She adjusted her sleeve, avoiding my eyes. "It's already ended, Henry. You just didn't notice." Then she walked away, just like that. I knocked once more, not hard, just enough to hear the sound of my own mistake echo back at me. No answer. The house I paid for, the porch I built with my own hands, suddenly felt like it belonged to someone else. I picked up the suitcase. It was heavier than it should have been, not because of what was inside, but because I hadn't packed it myself. Someone else had decided what I was allowed to keep. Inside were clothes I hadn't worn in years, old shirts, worn socks, nothing recent, nothing that mattered. My watch was gone. My wallet had only $42 in it, even my wedding ring. I realized then, it wasn't on my hand anymore. I don't remember taking it off. I sat down on the porch step like an old fool who'd missed the last bus home. Cars passed, life kept moving. And I stayed there, a man with nowhere to go, trying to understand how a lifetime could vanish in 10 minutes. Then my phone buzzed, a message from my son David. Not, "Are you okay?" Not, "What happened?" Just one line, "Dad, don't come here. Mom told me everything." I stared at that screen for a long time, because in that moment, I realized something colder than anything Carol had done. This wasn't sudden. This had been planned. I didn't call him back right away. I just sat there on that porch step, staring at the message like it might change if I blinked long enough. David had always been the reasonable one. Steady, practical, the kind of man who didn't jump to conclusions. So if he was already shutting the door on me, that meant he believed her. That meant she'd gotten to him first. I pushed myself up slowly, knees stiff, and carried that suitcase down the steps. Funny thing about losing everything, your body feels it before your mind catches up. Every step felt heavier than it should have been, like the ground itself was resisting me. I walked 2 blocks before I realized I didn't even know where I was going. My truck was gone. That hit me out of nowhere. I turned back instinctively, like maybe I'd missed it in the driveway. But of course I hadn't. It wasn't there. The keys weren't in my pocket either. She'd taken that too. I let out a dry laugh, the kind that doesn't sound human. 47 years together, and she knew exactly what to remove to make sure I couldn't get back on my feet. I ended up at a diner on the corner. Same place Carol and I used to come every Sunday after church. The bell above the door chimed like nothing had changed. Inside, the smell of coffee and grease wrapped around me. Familiar, almost comforting, until it wasn't. The waitress, young girl, couldn't have been more than 20, gave me a polite smile. "Table for one." I nodded. She didn't recognize me. That stung more than I expected. I sat by the window, set the suitcase beside me like it might run off, and ordered black coffee. When she brought it, my hands were still shaking. I wrapped them around the mug just to steady myself. That's when I opened the folder again. I went through every page slower this time. Account closures, property transfer, power of attorney documents, signed in my name. Clean, neat signatures that looked like mine, but I couldn't remember signing any of it. Not one. And then I saw the date. 3 months ago. My stomach dropped. 3 months. While we were still eating dinner together, still watching television side by side like nothing was wrong, she had already started erasing me. I felt something cold settle in my chest. This wasn't anger. Not yet. This was something deeper. The kind of realization that creeps in quiet and stays. I reached for my phone again. This time, I didn't call David. I called Carol. It rang once, twice. Then she picked up. "I told you not to call," she said, calm as ever. My voice came out lower than I expected. 3 months, Carol." There was a pause on the line, just long enough to confirm it. "You signed everything, Henry," she replied. "You just didn't pay attention." "That's a lie." "No," she said, almost gently. "That's your problem. You stopped paying attention a long time ago." The line went dead. I sat there staring at the phone, my reflection faint in the dark screen. And for the first time, a question pushed through all the confusion. What exactly had I missed? And why did it feel like everyone else already knew the answer except me? I stayed in that diner longer than I should have, long after the coffee went cold and the lunch crowd started to roll in. Nobody asked me to leave. Nobody noticed me at all. I'd spent a lifetime being seen, or at least I thought I had. Turns out, you can disappear while still sitting in plain sight. By the time I stepped back outside, the sky had turned that dull gray Iowa gets when it can't decide whether to rain or not. I stood there with my suitcase again, feeling like I was starting from scratch at 74, and not in any brave, inspiring kind of way. Just empty. I needed somewhere to go. There was only one place left. I dialed David again. This time, he answered on the third ring. "What?" he said, sharp, impatient. I swallowed. "I need a place to stay, just for a few days." Silence. Not the kind where someone's thinking. The kind where they've already made up their mind. "That's not a good idea, Dad." I felt something tighten in my chest. "I'm your father. I know who you are," he snapped. Then he lowered his voice, like someone might overhear. "Mom told me what you've been doing." My grip on the phone tightened. "And what exactly did she say I've been doing?" Another pause, shorter this time. "She said you've been confused, forgetting things. Signing papers you don't understand, that you've been unstable." I actually laughed at that. Not because it was funny, but because it was so clean, so perfectly constructed. "She tell you I built that house? That I paid every bill in it for 40 years?" I said quietly. "That's not the point." "It is the point." "No, Dad," he said, firmer now. "The point is she's been dealing with this for months, alone, while you've been—" He trailed off. "While I've been what?" "Slipping." That word hung there. Slipping. Like I was some old man losing his grip on reality. Like I couldn't be trusted with my own life. I leaned against the side of the building, my legs suddenly unsteady. "You believe that?" "I believe my mother," he said. No hesitation. That hurt more than anything Carol had done. "I don't have anywhere else to go," I said. Softer now. Another silence. Then he sighed. "There's a motel off Route 6. Cheap place. You can stay there for now." "For now," I repeated. "Yeah. Not, come home. Not, we'll figure it out. Just a direction." I nodded, even though he couldn't see it. "All right. And Dad," he added. I waited. "Maybe it's time you let someone help you." The call ended before I could respond. I stood there for a long time after that, the wind picking up, pushing against my coat like it wanted me to move. So I did. I walked, dragged that suitcase all the way down to Route 6 like some displaced stranger in my own town. The motel sign flickered when I got there. Half the letters were burned out. VAC NCY. Inside, the clerk barely looked up. I paid cash. $40 gone just like that. Almost everything I had left. The room smelled like old carpet and something worse underneath it. The bed sagged in the middle. The TV didn't turn on. I sat down anyway. For the first time all day, the silence hit me full force. No Carol in the kitchen. No sound of the evening news. No life. Just the hum of a broken air conditioner and my own breathing. I looked down at my hands. They didn't look confused. They didn't look unstable. They looked like the hands of a man who'd been tricked. Slowly, carefully, I reached back into that folder one more time. And that's when I saw something I'd missed before. A medical document, buried between the bank papers. My name at the top. A diagnosis I had never heard in my life. And a doctor's signature, dated the same week everything started disappearing. I stared at that paper until the words stopped making sense. Diagnosis. That word alone felt heavy, final, like something you don't argue with. My name was typed clean at the top, same as the other documents. Below it, medical terms I'd never heard, never discussed, never agreed to. Cognitive decline, early stage impairment, recommendation for financial supervision. I read it again, slower this time, like maybe I'd missed something the first 10 times. I hadn't. There was a doctor's name at the bottom, someone I'd never met. Not my physician. Not anyone Carol had ever mentioned. And then there was the signature. Mine. I held the paper closer, my fingers tightening around the edges. It looked like my signature. Same slant, same shape. But something about it felt off. Too smooth, too practiced, like someone had studied it. A cold feeling crept up my spine. No, I muttered under my breath. No, no. I sat back on that sagging motel bed, the springs groaning under me, and tried to remember. 3 months ago. What was I doing? Where had I been? I closed my eyes and forced myself back. We were at the kitchen table. I could see that much. Afternoon light coming through the window. Carol had papers spread out in front of me. Neat stacks, always neat. She said something about refinancing, simplifying things. Just sign here, Henry. It'll make everything easier. I remember hesitating. I remember asking a question, something about the bank, and then blank, just blank. My eyes snapped open. I hadn't thought much of it at the time. You forget little things when you get older. Names, dates, where you left your keys. That's normal. But this wasn't forgetting where I put my glasses. This was entire conversations. Gone. I looked back at the paper in my hands. Recommendation for supervision. My jaw tightened. She hadn't just taken the money. She'd built a case, piece by piece, quietly, while I was sitting across from her every night, eating dinner like a fool. My phone buzzed again, rattling against the cheap nightstand. I didn't even want to look, but I did. Unknown number. I let it ring twice before answering. Hello? Mr. Henry Lawson? A woman's voice said. Professional. Careful. Yes. This is Karen from Polk County Services. I'm calling regarding your case. My stomach dropped. What case? A pause. Papers shuffling on her end. We received documentation from your spouse regarding concerns about your cognitive condition and your ability to manage your affairs. I just wanted to confirm that you are currently in a safe environment. I laughed, short and bitter. You mean this motel? Another pause. Sir, are you alone? Yes. Do you have access to your medications? I don't have any medications. Silence again. Longer this time. Mr. Lawson, she said slowly, according to our records, you were prescribed treatment 2 months ago. I stood up so fast the chair scraped across the floor. No, I wasn't. Sir, I've never seen that doctor. I've never been diagnosed with anything. You're telling me my wife can just hand you papers and suddenly I'm not capable of living my own life? Her voice softened, but it didn't help. I'm not making that determination, Mr. Lawson. I'm just following up on a report. A report, I repeated. Yes. I looked down at the document still in my hand. At that signature that looked like mine, but didn't feel like mine. Then maybe you should start asking who wrote it, I said quietly. There was a hesitation on the line. Sir, if there's been some kind of misunderstanding, it's not a misunderstanding, I said. It's something else. I ended the call before she could respond. The room went quiet again, but it wasn't the same quiet as before. This one had weight to it, shape. This one had intention. I sat back down slowly, staring at the wall like I could see through it. Like somewhere on the other side of this mess there was an answer waiting. Because now I knew one thing for certain. Carol hadn't just thrown me out. She'd made sure that if I tried to fight back, no one would believe a word I said. I didn't sleep that night. I lay there on that sunken mattress, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment from the past few months. Every conversation, every paper Carol had put in front of me, every time I'd felt just a little off and brushed it aside. It wasn't random. It was a pattern. And once you see a pattern, you can't unsee it. Around 3 in the morning, it hit me. Not all at once, but slow, like something rising up from deep water. There were days I felt foggy. I remembered that now. Not confused exactly, just dulled, like my thoughts were moving through syrup. Carol used to hand me a glass of water in the evenings, say it was for my blood pressure. You forgot again, she'd tell me with that calm voice. Doctor said you need to stay consistent. I never questioned it. Why would I? 47 years. You don't question the person who's been beside you your entire life. But now, sitting there in that motel room, something twisted in my gut. I pushed myself up and went to the bathroom mirror. The fluorescent light buzzed overhead, casting that sickly yellow glow. I looked older than I remembered. Not just older, worn down. What did you do to me, Carol? I whispered. My voice didn't sound like mine. I went back to the bed and grabbed the folder again, flipping through it with shaking hands. Medical forms, bank transfers, legal authorizations, all neat, all clean, all aligned like someone had spent time making sure every piece fit together perfectly. Then I saw another name. Not the doctor. A witness signature. Amanda Lawson. I froze. Amanda, my daughter-in-law, David's wife. I sat there staring at her name like it might disappear if I blinked. No, I said quietly. No, she wouldn't. But the longer I looked, the harder it was to deny. This wasn't just Carol. This was bigger. My phone buzzed again, vibrating hard against the wood like it had something urgent to say. This time, it was David. I let it ring once, twice. Then I answered. What? I said, my voice flat. He didn't hesitate. You need to stop this. Stop what? Calling people, questioning things. Mom's already dealing with enough. I closed my eyes for a second, just to steady myself. Did you know? Silence. That was answer enough. Did you know? I repeated louder this time. I knew you weren't well, he said finally. My chest tightened. That's not what I asked. Another pause, longer, heavier. Then he said it. I knew she was protecting what's hers. Something inside me cracked, clean and sharp. What's hers? I repeated slowly. The house, the savings, everything you've been mishandling. I laughed again, but this time it came out broken. Mishandling? I built that life, David, every dollar. And you were losing control of it, he snapped. You were forgetting things, signing papers without reading them, making mistakes. I was drugged, I said. The line went dead quiet. I could hear his breathing, shallow now. What? He said. I didn't forget, I continued, my voice steady for the first time since this started. I was drugged. Those pills she gave me, every night. I didn't even know what they were. That's ridiculous. Is it? I shot back. Then why don't I remember signing anything? Why is there a doctor I've never met? Why is your wife's name on legal documents transferring everything out of my control? Silence again. But this one was different. This one wasn't confidence. It was hesitation. "You're twisting things," he said finally. But there was something weaker underneath it now. "No," I said quietly. "I'm finally seeing them." My hand tightened around the phone. "You didn't just let this happen," I continued. "You helped." "That's not fair." "Fair," I repeated. "You told me not to come to your house, your own father, and you didn't even ask if I was okay." He didn't answer. And that silence, that was the truth. I swallowed hard, my throat dry. "All this time," I said, softer now. "I thought I was losing my mind." I paused. But I wasn't the one disappearing. I pulled the phone away from my ear. "Dad," he started. I hung up. The room felt smaller now, tighter, like the walls had moved in while I wasn't looking. This wasn't just betrayal. This was coordination, planned, signed, witnessed, executed. A whole life, taken piece by piece, by the people I trusted most. And as I sat there in that dim motel room, one thought settled in, cold and undeniable. This didn't start 3 months ago. It started long before that. I just hadn't realized when they stopped seeing me as family and started seeing me as something to get rid of. Morning came without feeling like morning. The light through the motel curtains was thin, gray, like the day didn't want to fully arrive. I sat on the edge of the bed, fully dressed, shoes still on from the night before. I don't remember deciding not to sleep. My body just never let go. For a long time, I didn't move. Then I reached into my pocket and pulled out my wallet again. $42 had turned into 2 wrinkled bills and some loose change after the room. I turned it over in my hands like it might explain something. Like maybe there was still a piece of my life tucked inside I hadn't noticed. There wasn't. Just an old photo, faded at the edges. Carol and me, younger, standing in front of that same house. She was smiling. So was I. I stared at it for a while, then set it face down on the nightstand. I couldn't look at it anymore. Around 9, there was a knock at the door. Not loud, not aggressive, just certain. I stood slowly, my knees stiff, my head clearer than it had been in days. That fog, it was gone now, completely gone. And that alone told me everything I needed to know. I opened the door. 2 people stood there, a man and a woman. Clean clothes, calm faces. The kind of calm that doesn't ask questions. It delivers answers. "Mr. Lawson?" the woman asked gently. "Yes." "I'm Karen. We spoke yesterday." "Of course." Behind her, the man gave me a polite nod. "We just want to make sure you're all right, sir." I looked past them, half expecting to see Carol standing somewhere nearby, watching, making sure the last piece fell into place. But she wasn't there. She didn't need to be. "I'm fine," I said. Karen gave a small, practiced smile. "We understand this is a difficult situation. Transitions like this can be confusing." "I'm not confused." Another pause. The man stepped forward slightly. Not threatening, just closer. "We're here to help," he said. Help. That word again. I glanced back into the room. The suitcase, the folder, the life that had been reduced to a handful of papers and whatever I could carry. Then I looked at them. "Did she tell you I was dangerous?" I asked. Karen's expression didn't change. "She expressed concern for your well-being." "That's not what I asked." No answer. I nodded slowly. Of course she hadn't said dangerous. She didn't need to. She just needed to make sure I wasn't believable. I stepped back, leaving the door open, not inviting them in, not stopping them either. The man took that as permission. He walked inside, slow, careful, like I might spook if he moved too fast. Karen followed. Their eyes moved around the room, taking everything in, noticing what was missing, noticing what was left. "How long have you been here?" she asked. "Long enough." She nodded. writing something down, always writing, always documenting. I sat back on the edge of the bed, watching them like strangers in a place that used to belong to me, even though it never really did. "You don't have to do this," I said after a while. Karen looked up. "Do what?" "Pretend." A flicker, just for a second. Then it was gone. "We're not pretending, Mr. Lawson." I let out a slow breath. "No," I said quietly. "You're just finishing it." The man shifted his weight. "Finishing what?" I looked at him, really looked this time. "They already took everything that mattered," I said. "You're just here to make sure I don't try to take it back." Silence, thick, uncomfortable. Karen closed her folder. "Mr. Lawson, we're going to need you to come with us, just for an evaluation. It's routine." Routine. I nodded slowly, like I understood, like I agreed, because in a way, I did. I stood up, reached for my coat, then stopped. For a second, I just stood there, feeling something shift inside me. Not panic, not anger, something quieter, final. I turned back toward the nightstand, toward that photo lying face down. I didn't pick it up. I didn't say goodbye to it. I just walked past it, out the door, and as it closed behind me, I realized something I hadn't been ready to admit before. They hadn't just taken my home. They'd already decided where I belonged next. If this story meant something to you, subscribe. There's more to come.